Good morning. Hey, welcome to this wet and dreary day in Central Florida. I hope your week is going well as we get some big news today because today is the Fed meeting minutes. We'll talk about that and more when Dave joins us here in just a few seconds. Before we do that, though, let's not forget that there are so many things in this world that we have no control over. However, you can take control of your portfolio by knowing the amount of risk you have in your portfolio versus how much risk you should have in your portfolio. Hey, with that, we got Dave coming up next.
5.7 Light FM. John Waite is there. Morning Dave is here. It's 8:41. Let's check in on your money and find out what's going on Wall Street today. A couple of turns of mood going on because, well, we actually have a pleasant surprise for a change on the inflation front. Phillip Statler's on the phone from Statler Financial Services in downtown Sebring. Phillip, good morning. How are you today?
Hey, good morning, David. Doing well today, other than just a little wet. I had to walk Charlie this morning in the rain. So, but other than that, it's a great day, and I will tell you, the futures are very happy with some of the news that came out at 8:30.
Well, dag-nab, they should be. Yeah, I'm not complaining about the rain until it does this in the morning 3 or 4 days in a row. Then I might let myself, because heaven knows we need the moisture for the moment, don't we?
That we do.
Yeah, my cat took one look out the door this morning, wanted to go out for a minute, turned right around and came back in. Her tail didn't even make it all the way out the door before she turned her. Yeah, I don't want this crud. Might even use the sandpan if worse comes to worse. Setting the table. Yesterday was not a really pretty day. Call it flat overall. The Dow lost 120. Standard & Poor's up 14.5. That was enough to get us to a new record, though. And NASDAQ was up 151. That was a reasonably good day. Then we come up to this morning, and early on, they released the Consumer Price Index reading for last month. It's the first time ever I can actually say a 3.3% inflation rate is good news, because they were expecting worse, and it was absolutely dead flat last month. So the market's got to like that, right?
They did like that, Dave. I'm telling you, they skyrocketed when that number came out. I mean, we're talking about jumping 200 points on the Dow. So it was definitely some pleasant surprise and good news to the indexes.
Absolutely. The core was even a little bit better. It actually went up by 0.2%, but the core consumer price index actually was a pleasant surprise as well, because they were expecting worse. And all of that adds up to a good harbinger for what could happen at 2 o'clock this afternoon, because the Federal Reserve Open Market Committee is meeting, deciding whether or not to kneecap us with more interest rate increases. And that, at the very least, decreases the odds of that happening later on today, doesn't it?
Well, it definitely does. And I got to think that by this morning, they probably got pretty much their decisions made as what they're going to do. So, but it could change some of the wording, and as they finish up today in what they see for the rest of this year. Now, I'm just, a little hesitant to say that this is ultimately good news, because we still have 2 more things to come out that will give us some indications of what inflation looks like. This is just
Absolutely.
one.
Yep, and I was mentioning yesterday, I'm still concerned about the money supply exceeding the supply of products and services to buy. So I'm not optimistic for a zero inflation rate for one lousy month being that good a news. But it's still interesting, and also the things they're going to be watching most heavily at 2:30 in the press conference, going to be that proverbial dot plot to see what the odds are of a September rate decrease. And that there's still a lot of optimism that could happen out there, isn't there?
There is, and again, I have a hard time seeing it. I know that this is some good news. Again, we still have 2 more data points to come out with before the end of the month that will give us some more inflationary news. But to me, it's too soon to be jumping up and down and cheering.
But never stop an investor from jumping up and down and cheering, because he's happy as all get out this morning. The other data bit that we had out was the mortgage applications, and mortgage rates actually went down a little over the last week, and I gather that made a bit of an excitement on the mortgage markets, didn't it?
It did, Dave. I mean, mortgages applications surged like 16% from the week before, um, on really stronger than expected employment news. I guess on Friday helped that, but that was a pretty big jump. I'm trying to run through some of the details here because it came up kind of last minute for us. But
Hmm.
refis, it looked like we're up 28% from the prior
Wow.
week. And new home sales don't come out to me real quick here. I'm looking, but I don't see it popping up where I can see it real quick.
I'm
So, but
still
still
having
good
trouble.
news on that market.
Still having trouble getting my head around the notion of refining at 6.5%. That it hasn't gone down that much yet.
No, no, it really hasn't. And so the only thing I can think of is short-term rates. I mean, the 30-year treasury did drop probably 0.5% the last week. And so it could have affected the ARM rates, and adjustable mortgages. It could have dropped those even further, and that could have been a what's kind of sparred some of folks to refinance.
Could be intriguing. Other tidbits going out this morning. So we got good news on the mortgage applications. That indicates the housing market is kind of getting an infusion. We've got good news on the inflation. And you know darn good and well out of Washington, we're going to have a press conference later on today telling everybody that inflation is down to zero. You want to put a nickel bet on that being the press conference talking point?
Well, they'll take all the credit, right?
Yes, I have whipped inflation. It's down to zero for one lousy month. Never mind the fact that it's 3.3% still on the CPI. And your point's taken. We still have producer prices and the PCI number to get out. And those are the things that the Fed actually follows more carefully. And like I said, the dot plot's going to be interesting this afternoon. There should be a real seismograph at 2 and then again at 2:30 this afternoon when Paulson does his press conference. Other stuff going on this morning. We've got FedEx announcing that Europe is a little on the soft side. They're going to lay off a bunch of employees over there. What's the meat there?
Yeah, I'm not sure exactly what the deal is, but they're back office employees. They're not the delivery guys that are out in the front line. So it's they say the back office people. So maybe they're consolidating some of their departments. That's the only thing I can think of.
How do you say artificial intelligence, right?
That could be.
It could be. We do need to make a slight change of course as far as Apple. Yesterday we'd mentioned when they released their iPhone 16 operating system for operating system 18. They were they were talking about how they were going to still give all of the artificial intelligence elements onto the 15, and it was going to be all hunky dory. And everybody said, "Well, shucks, that's not going to generate a super cycle." Evidently, investors had second thoughts yesterday. Apple set a new stock value record, and they're now right up there with Microsoft, competing for the most valuable company in the nation again. Evidently, you think things over for a little while, and things look a little brighter than they were expecting.
Yeah, it's actually almost a new 52-week high for them, up 7.25% this morning.
Absolutely, and it's good news for all of us because I keep saying, we're Phillip and I are not Apple groupies. Apple is simply the most widely held stock in mutual funds and ETFs that out there. You look at your mutual funds, you look at your ETFs. I'd almost bet a nickel that whether you're in a growth fund or a capital preservation fund, you probably own some Apple, whether you know it or not, right?
Well, that's right. It is definitely a popular traded stock. And it's a holding that a lot of folks, a lot of money managers will hold on to, just because of the technology behind it. And it seems to be on the cutting edge most of the time.
Understood. I couldn't believe I've even got a couple of funds that supposedly specialize in overseas stocks. I'm not a big believer in overseas stocks, but I let my broker put me in one of them and looked at its holdings a couple of weeks ago. They've even got some Apple in there. And I was, okay, why? I didn't understand. But nevertheless, widely held would be a good term. Reports out, we don't have a lot, but you do have, what are they, a C-store chain or are they a truck stop chain?
No,
Casey's?
they're a C store. They're a convenience store.
Okay.
Casey's General Store. You don't see them around the east much, but you get out west. When we were traveling last year, we saw some Casey's General Stores pop up pretty regular, and so they came in with earnings per share pretty doggone good, Dave. They made $2.34 a share versus $1.72 that was expected. So that was good. Though I will tell you, they did. kind of miss on revenue. They missed by about $100 million or so on revenue, but still earnings are big enough that it's pushing them up. They're up almost 7.2%, and at the opening price, they'd set a new 52-week high.
Cool. As I remember them when I lived out west, they're basically Dollar General for cowboys out there. Probably an adequate term. I do remember them vaguely out there. I was trying to remember what position they'd end up holding. Setting the table again, mixed bag yesterday. We kind of held steady on balance when you take the Dow's loss and the NASDAQ's gain. 45 minutes before we opened this morning, my delayed quotes have finally caught up a little bit. Big knee upward at 8:30 this morning. How are we doing 45 minutes ahead of time?
Dave, I can't find any red on my charts except for the VIX going into this morning. The Dow is up 0.8%. The NASDAQ 100 is up 0.9%. And the S&P 500 is up 0.8%. And the Russell 2000, boy, you got to like this, Dave, up 2.75% this morning. A good move on their part. And then we go over to the commodity side of the market. Silver up 2.3%, not quite at $30 yet, at $29.90 an ounce. Gold took a big jump up 1.1% to $2,351 an ounce. And then crude oil up another 1.5%. David is getting so close to 80. It's at $79.08 a barrel.
Well, poop. I'm just going to probably put lipstick on a pig and say it's not 80 again yet. Overseas markets, the Asian Rim markets respond to our closes from the day before at 6 a.m. this morning. They closed mixed with a little bit of uptick on the Chinese mainland markets. Everybody else is off by a bit. Unbalanced, taking just an eyeball average. The Asian Rim markets were down by average a little under 0.5% in toto. Europe, on the other hand, looking at our futures, and they're saying, hey, wow, this looks pretty doggone good, guys. The European markets are almost all in green ink, and I'm up by almost a full percent from one end of the continent to the other, and that looks pretty good to me as well. Looking at my retirement, on the other hand, if I'm looking at it day by day, I'm probably playing with fire. That means I need a plan to make sure I can retire when I plan on and how I plan on it. How do I get a hold of you to get that plan?
You know, Dave, that's exactly why I developed the Core Retirement Design, to help people design that retirement they always dreamed of. And it starts, you're right, by having a plan, ascertaining how much risk you have in that plan, and then building the income to go with it. And that's, again, our Core Retirement Analysis. Give us a call at 863-382-0037. And then catch us this weekend for the Statler Financial Radio Show, 6 a.m. and noon on Saturday, 10 a.m. Sunday morning on Highlands News Talk, 7:30 a.m. and 95.3 FM.
And back here again tomorrow with another look at what happened today, especially the Federal Reserve Open Market Committee. It's always fun at 2 looking at the charts going up and down like a seismograph. I'll see you then, sir.
All right, man. Have a great day.
Thank you. It's 105.7 Light FM and Statler Financial Services, Phillip Statler.
And folks, again, I want to thank you for today joining us. Stay dry. Join us again tomorrow. Take care. Bye now.